You're here along with the rest of us to speed the entropic death of this planet. To service the chaos. We're maggots eating a corpse.
What the f is wrong with you?
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. This is going to be my Westworld Season 3, Episode 6 video. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. Careful for spoilers. If you have not seen the episode, obviously, we'll do top 10 WTF and Easter eggs as we go along. Starting with number 10, the title of the episode was Decoherence. Usually that term applies to quantum decoherence, which is kind of like a loss of coherence in the quantum state of particles. But in the episode, it's a metaphor for just the chaos that erupts through the world. It's also a very apt metaphor for what's going on with the Men in Black's mental state, as well as Maeve's plans, Dolores, and the Charlotte version of Dolores' plans, as everything kind of spins into chaos. So number 9, the intro. The episode picks up with Maeve experiencing her original memory with her daughter in the park, the one that she kept remembering during the first 2 seasons. She wakes up in a new dress in a copy of the field that Serac has created in a special environment, saying that I can give this to you. You can have this paradise. It can be real. He waxes about the nature of memories, how human memory is imperfect, but because she's a host, she remembers everything perfectly. She's not taking any of his bullcrap, but she does ask for some backup, which he is happy to oblige, while also threatening her life again. Pretty much every conversation that they have, every time that they talk, he always reminds her that she's expendable. They have a bit of a funny moment when she wakes back up in the War World park again, only this time she has all of her abilities to control other hosts inside this simulation, and she sort of uses it as a catharsis, just working her way through the soldiers just to clear her mind. A bit of a therapy session, which is a nice parallel for the Man in Black storyline when he goes through his multiple different therapy sessions. So number 8, the Man in Black's first therapy session. This one is real. It's happening in the real world. There are a couple points in the episode when you're made to question what's real, what's fake. Then they reveal at the end of the episode that some of it was fake. But this first one is still real. So these are just other people in the mental institution where Dolores stuck him. He waxes about the nature of God, giving his argument against God. If there ever was one, humanity is terrible. We misuse everything. He doesn't care about us anymore. He makes more metaphors about humanity seeming like the villain in all of this in hastening the world's demise. Then number 7, things start to spiral out of control even more. The therapist tries to get him to talk about his daughter. He seemingly owns up to it. I know what I did. I don't need to be in here because I understand exactly what happened. It's my fault. I'm the one that killed my daughter. She sets him up for the AR therapy, then things completely spiral out of control for her in the background. If it wasn't totally clear why her life seemingly got flushed down the toilet just in the span of time that she was having that conversation with the Man in Black, I think that's all to do with the Insight profiles that got sent to everyone. There was probably something on her record, somebody found something out about her backstory, that's why she probably lost her license, and whatever was also on there was so terrible that her husband is like, please never contact us, I'm taking the children. Later in the episode, as he walks by, you see her hanging herself, but this is also at the point when he's seemingly drugged up, so you're made to question what's real, what's not real. I think she really did wind up killing herself. Bernard and Stubbs show up at the end of the episode, implying that everybody just went so crazy that nobody cares about him or they forgot about him, so it kind of implies that this level of craziness is happening all over this mental institution. But number 6, that crazy AR therapy session. I think they did a good job of explaining it before you start to see all those visions, so it was pretty clear what was happening. They have a way of hooking him up so he sort of walks through his memories, re-experiencing things. But it's all implied to be very traumatic because he sees a younger version of himself reading that book. You hear an abusive-sounding father out in the hallway yelling at his mother. By the end of the episode, you find out that his past is a little more complicated than you were led to believe, but that's all about the question of whether or not he was destined to do all these things or if they're the result of all the choices that he made. Either way, the point is that he clearly has a history of violence. Then number 5, Charlotte Dolores with Charlotte's family. This is the version of Dolores who's getting confused about who she really is. Her personality, the Dolores personality, is bleeding together with the memories of Charlotte Hale. They try to use her husband as the voice of reason during the episode, sort of like the voice of the audience, like, hey, the machine doesn't have to decide your future. It's within our control. We decide what we do. You also probably saw the Easter egg in the background as she's walking through the crowds of rioting people. You see them graffitiing the maze on the wall there next to her house, and it's a little bit like the maze from the first couple seasons on the show. Like all these humans in planet Earth are breaking their loops, quote unquote, like Dolores wanted them to because they got their Insight data. They have a funny way of answering that storyline with the Man in Black's storyline at the end of the episode. But this Charlotte version of Dolores seems like she's caught between both Serac in the main version of Dolores. Like she kind of realizes that the main version of Dolores is really only using her, she's expendable, and she even tries to talk Charlotte out of helping her family. They're not really your family, but Charlotte still feels like they are because the memories have all bled together. Serac comes, kills the board member in broad daylight, saying that it's no big deal because it's so chaotic outside that nobody notices. Then later arrives, the deal is done, you see all the logos all over Delos start switching to Insight. Remember, he's only here because he wants the backup data for the human copies so that he can give it to Rehoboam to perfect its algorithms. Then number 4, Serac orders everyone to destroy all the data at Delos. He only wants the backup copies for Rehoboam. Burn everything else. Trillions of dollars worth of IP. Doesn't care at all about it. It's important to know that Charlotte is able to make the backup copy and send it to the other server, so there is a backup copy of all the data. But as the board convenes, he outs her in front of all of them. Remember, this is all about things spiraling into chaos, so no surprise that Charlotte then pulls a fast one on them again, killing the other board members, escaping. Love that they brought back that giant robot. You kind of wonder what they were going to do with it when they teased it earlier this season. Like, oh, I can probably find something for you to do. And she does as it hulks out, helping her escape. Probably one of the best parts of the episode though, number 3, the Man in Black's all Man in Black therapy session. You could kind of see the direction this was going when the camera panned up and he was like, oh crap, what the hell is going on here? The other big clue that this was all happening inside his mind, or inside this AR therapy session, is that the guard that comes to pick him up to take him to the therapy session is one of the hosts from Westworld. He recognizes him and says, wait a minute, you look familiar. Sometimes it's kind of hard to tell in Westworld what's real and what's fake. Sometimes they'll go into the cinematic aspect ratio, and sometimes it'll be 16:9. Usually that's how you can tell when you're inside a system, but usually they only do that cinematic aspect ratio for the Westworld park systems where the host backups are stored. The way they're playing it with the Man in Black is really weird. Like, it sounds like he might be some sort of weird hybrid between human and host. It all has something to do with that irregularity on his blood when they were putting him in the AR machine. It detects an anomaly that Serac later references when he's talking about testing all the other executives at Delos to find out who the copy is. Right now, I'm still leaning towards the Man in Black being real and other people just messing with him. Remember, there's a lot of technology, a lot of biotechnology to make you feel like you're experiencing things that aren't really happening. So even though it gets really wild and really trippy with his storylines as to what's real and what's fake, I still think that he's real right now. And that's the whole point, is that he kind of starts out with this really tragic backstory that the James Delos copy makes fun of during the therapy session. Are you lying about your backstory? But then grows up to be a successful executive, seems like he's going to have a happy life, then things just completely go to shit when he goes to the Westworld Park, falls in love with Dolores. He slowly winds up becoming the Man in Black, seeming like a villain of the story, and now seems like more of an anti-hero, like he says he's going to save the world. They also dosed him with that blood tracker, so that's also probably part of the blood abnormality that they pick up when they're testing him, putting him in that AR machine. So number 2, you have the standoff between Maeve and the copy of Dolores that Serac created, trying to get the key from her. They're still trying to get that backup on the satellite of all that host data as well as the human backups. They do this really cool thing where all these different versions of Dolores, even though they don't necessarily know exactly what the other copies are doing, because they're of the same mind, they're from the same source, they have a pretty good idea and they're able to surmise exactly what's happening. So she proceeds to tell Maeve, oh, I would probably have a backup plan for this. As Charlotte goes to kill Hector, you see Maeve sort of lash out in rage. You see all the lights in the real world start to dim out. Remember, she has this connection to the real world so she can see what's going on outside the simulation too. She's able to make it out into the real world, but there's also the second host that got printed too. We don't find out who that is. I'm wondering if it's them taking a page out of Dolores' book and just printing a second copy of Maeve to make her twice as powerful. Then number 1, Serac kills Charlotte's family just as the Man in Black finishes killing all the versions of himself. You could kind of sense where this was headed midway through the conversation of all the different versions talking to themselves. It's sort of different aspects of his mind, so as he says, he kind of narrates the action later if it wasn't totally clear. I'm killing all the past versions of myself. Everything I've done, it doesn't matter anymore. It only matters what I'm going to do. As Charlotte Dolores crawls out, she looks kind of sad, but she's still alive, she still has the backup, so I'm wondering if she's going to be seeking revenge for what happened to Charlotte's family. I love the way that Serac talks about her too. The reason why we found out that you were the copy is because you cared way more about Charlotte's family than the real Charlotte ever would. She would have never called her family in a crisis like this. That is cold, but while that's happening, you also have the Man in Black sort of capping off the lesson of the episode, all this chaos. What's real? What's fake? Was I always destined to become this crazy person that I am today? Or is it a result of all the actions and the choices that I made? Turns out, doesn't matter. That feels like the writers talking to us in a meta way that it doesn't actually matter whether or not he's a host or if he's real. But you guys can let me know in the comments, after the episode, do you feel like he's real or do you think that he is a host? They imply in the trailer for next week's episode that we're going to get more into Caleb's backstory. There's a lot going on in the flashbacks that he was experiencing during his trip in last week's episode that sort of confuse his timeline, like he doesn't totally remember what actually happened or somehow his memories have been altered. Remember, there are only 2 episodes left. There are only 8 episodes this season, so my episode 7 video will post next week. Everyone, click here for all my Westworld episodes, and click here for my brand new Guardians of the Galaxy 3 video. Thank you so much for watching. Everyone stay safe. I'll see you guys tonight.